Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cheapskate Coins. This is that special video you've all been waiting on. I'm here with Mr. Rick Snow. And we've got your questions that you've asked. And we're going to have him sign a book, which he's happily donating, which we thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, alright, let's get this thing going. So, alright, for those who don't necessarily know who you are, give us a little bit about your background and everything.
Okay, I'm Rick Snow, and I'm the owner of Eagle Eye Rare Coins. And I started my business in 1992. I was working for another coin dealer here in Tucson, Allstate Coin. And while I was working for him, I wrote my first book, which was Flying Eagles in Indian Cents. And it was about this thick, you know, but it was the first book on Indian cents. And to promote it, I couldn't really work on his time to promote it properly, so I took the plunge and left and started on my own and to promote the book and started Eagle Eye Rare Coins. Okay, so with that, things just grew, and because I was known for Indian cents, and that was became my specialty, and we took off from there. And this is now in the third edition of both books, and this is the variety book. It's now called the Flying Eagle in Indian Cent Attribution Guide, and it's 2 volumes, about 900 pages. And this is the one I did for Whitman, which is more of a collector guide, the guidebook of Indian cents. This is for the Bowers series, and that's also in its 3rd edition. So those are two books there. And we're located in Tucson. So.
And I know you're a number of groups. I know you're a member of like P&G and Conoco. Give us kind of a list of all of the things you're a member of.
Well, for Conecuh, I'm the attributor for Flying Eagle in Indian cents. So people, if they have a new variety, they send them to me, and I make sure that they haven't been attributed or found before, and I assign the number, publish them in the Longacre Ledger, which is the publication for the Fly-In Club. That's the Flying Eagle and Indian Cent Collector Society. And that once it's published, then places like ANAX and whatever will assign the number on their slabs. And if it becomes really popular, then it gets in the Cherry Picker's Guide, which I'm the editor for the Indian Cent section for the Cherry Picker's Guide for a number of issues now. And so once it's in there, then the varieties will get picked up by PCGS and put on their holders. And so that's Conecuh. I mentioned the Flying Eagle and Indian Cent Collector Society. That's the Fly-In Club. And that we started in 1991, and it was kind of started because of the book project, because I was talking to a lot of collectors, and they all were contributing their varieties that they found, and we said, hey, let's start a club. So we started a club. I'm member number 1 and the co-founder, and we have about 500 members now, and we put out a journal that has all the new varieties in it and a lot of new information on Indian cents all the time. Other organizations that are important is the ANA, of course, the American Numismatic Association. I'm a life member, and the ANS also, and PNG, which is a professional numismatic group, a guild. Also, various specialty clubs for standing Liberty quarters, bust quarters, bust coins, and all those EAC. I'm a member of EAC, and all those things are really good for getting information. So.
Okay, and so the next thing I wanted to go over was you all are familiar with the CAC, and you have your own kind of version of that. You call it the photo seal.
Yeah, photo seal.
Talk about that a little bit.
I actually started that before 8 years before CAC, so they really copied me.
However, if it's a good idea, take it, right?
It's a good idea. So we were seeing that when coins were being submitted to NGC and PCGS in 1995, this is now 10 years into coin grading, and we were seeing they were getting real loose with their grading. And a lot of coins that were red-brown were being called red, full red. And people would come rushing over to my table with a big collection. They just got certified. And they say, oh, here are all these reds. You want to buy them? And I'm like, no, because they're not red. And they were just graded. People look at red-brown coins and red holders, and they think, oh, this must have changed in the holders because, the graders wouldn't do anything, as far as misgrading a coin or giving a gift grade to someone. But you would be wrong if you thought that, because it happened all the time back then. And so we saw that this would kill the market for properly graded coins. And so said, how do we do this? I mean, we can't condemn the coins that are overgraded. So the best way to do that is to identify the coins that are correctly graded and make a market in those and promote those, and that would lift the value of the properly graded coins, and the ones that aren't photo sealed would be second class. Okay, so and if you make a market and a price guide based on properly graded coins, it's much more realistic. Okay, like I said, 8 years later, CAC started that, but they do all coins. I just do Indian cents. And and they got a lot of money behind them. They started with $5 million, and actually their whole reason for doing the stickering is to protect the market, but also to get those coins, and they have a good market going through them. And it's not just to identify the properly graded coins, it's actually to make a market in. Okay, so that really helps the coin market. I think if neither of those had come around, the coin market would really be in a world of hurt right now. It also prompted the grading companies to become a little stricter and watch out for overgrading. So.
Now for CAC, they have their color code system for certain colors for if they think it's a little under what it got graded. Their color for if they think it's equal to what it says.
They're gold sticker. Yeah. They're gold sticker, and that's really.
Does your system have anything like that?
No,
or is it just you agree with?
No, but I'll tell the submitter, hey, you should send this in. But it's basically I look at it.
This with my sticker.
Yeah.
I'll give you a better.
When I'm thinking when I photo seal a coin, and whether it's in my inventory or someone ships it to me, and it's $15 to ship it in, I look at if this was graded, the next grade up, would it be properly graded, and if that's the case, then I'd tell them, hey, maybe you should send this in before submitting it. But as far as coins that get the sticker, it's just me, and I have a really good memory for grading. Okay, I see coins that I graded 20 years ago come back to me, and I still agree with the grade. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's a different standard or something has changed or anything like that, or it's the same eyes, the same brain looking at it, and it's very consistent. So. I'm proud of that fact. So.
Now, with the talks of going to a 100-point grading system, where do you think the grading scale is at right now?
Oh, I don't think we'd ever do that. That would be ridiculous because
I agree.
That would be just because then you'd have a mess of the old grading standard, the new grading standard, with the same companies, I guess, doing it. Or if the new company came in and started doing that, I don't think anyone would go to it. Because
My only concern is, sorry to cut you off.
well,
My only
let me just finish.
Okay.
Because it would create confusion. Okay, and there's a saying in advertising: "A confused mind never buys." So, when people are confused, they're going to just say, "Ah, okay, I'm going to collect stamps."
Yeah, because they're going to see the different things, and they're going to be like, "These people have no idea what they're talking about." Apparently,
Right. So,
my main concern is I worry about, because after all, it is business. So my concern is, would PCGS and NGC, the two biggest names in grading, would they push it through just to say, we have all of these coins that we've graded over the past, 30 years, that now people are going to suddenly flood them back in, wanting to get it regraded under this new system?
They do have the law of diminishing returns does apply to them, because once they grade coins, it's like they're not going to get it back, but they do get it back for people attempting regrades. And there's a lot of people out there. They make their entire living on regrades,
Yeah.
and they're in a world of hurt when the grading companies don't give them regrades, like this period right now. But as far as running out of coins, they both NGC and PCGS have migrated to doing a lot of modern issues. So they'll, as long as a mint is making coins, they're going to have coins to certify. And I don't know. I don't look at their revenue or anything like that, but I would say that I would think they probably make 70% of their money grading modern issues. Okay, I took a tour of PCGS before they moved to their new place, and they had their room with the graders and everything like that. Well, that's well and good, but in the other room they had pallet loads of Silver Eagles waiting to be graded. Okay, and I don't care what they're charging, but those pallet loads, they make a ton of money on those, and they get them every day.
That's for
So,
the mass, like Silver
the
Eagles
yeah,
and things, yeah.
right. And when I say a pallet, that's like maybe 100 monster boxes. So that's 500,000 coins.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, plus now PCGS just opened up their currency division too.
yeah,
They're doing the
well,
currency now.
right, yeah. I don't know how that's going to work, but I guess they will.
Why not?
I know. Anyway, I don't see them changing the grading standard or the grading numbering system. I think what may happen down the road, this is maybe a while, but if once CAC and Eagle Eye pass on, hopefully not for a while, but then the grading services may just loosen up too much and create a world of problems with consistency in the minds of people, especially people who know how to grade. And once they do that, they could shoot themselves in the foot and then open it up for another grading company to come along and reslab all of the CAC and photoseal coins, okay, in this new company. And then PCGS and NGC are automatically second-class grading companies.
Basically, they become the ICG of today.
Right, that could happen, but they,
no offense to anybody out there that supports ICG.
It could happen, but I don't think in my lifetime it's going to happen.
Okay. So one of the things that we're doing within the coin community on YouTube right now is we're kind of doing a tips for new collectors, and I wanted to get your take on if you could go back to your child self and tell your child self when you first started getting into coins one thing you know now that you didn't know then, what would it be?
Well, back then, I got involved in the 70s, and I just didn't have access to the kind of coins that people have access to now. to see really gem, type coins and things like that. I mean, I remember searching for a Barber half for my 20th century typeset, and I couldn't find anything better than a AU-58, and I couldn't find a real uncirculated. Might have just been the quality of collectors or dealers in my area, but I had a hard time. And I remember, if I did find one, wow, I'd really stretched to get it. Now, you can find them anywhere. You just go to eBay and, select which one you want for the right price, and no problem. And of course, there's grading now too, so you're not going to get a slider when you buy a gem. Mm-hmm. So we're
We're gonna have to cut it because I gotta change the
okay. I think there's a world of opportunity in buying nice coins, and actually they're quite cheap now by comparison. Okay, and like gem-proof Liberty nickels in 1970. I remember because I bought a couple back in 1978 or so. They were $200 coins. Today, they're $200 coins for the same type of thing. Proof 63, 64s. Not cameo gems, but so that maybe doesn't say much for potential increase. Okay, but you can get really nice coins fairly easily.
That would be more of a decrease considering how far $20 or $200 went back then compared to now.
Right, and I can get into why that's happened, but you should consider yourself lucky to be able to buy a really nice proof type coin for under $500, anywhere nowadays. I mean, it's a bargain. So anyway, I did look into it.
All right, we had to change the battery real quick. So, all right, we left off on Rick talking about the tip he would give his young self.
Yeah, well, let me continue with that. I think now, since it's a totally different atmosphere as far as buying coins, I think if you're starting coin collecting now, you really have to learn varieties. I think that's a way to go. Get books and learn what the really good varieties are. For like silver dollars, you go to VAM World, give them a plug, and you can go cherry picking online on eBay or wherever and find all kinds of varieties there. So you don't really need to go out to coin shows like I used to all the time. You can look, search eBay for great deals and great, rare varieties and things like that. Yeah. So
Now, the main thing I let people know about eBay is just be careful with eBay because there's a lot of fake stuff out there.
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
they want to make sure they know if what they're getting is legit or not.
right, yeah, and also in the way of varieties, when I was starting in the late 70s, there was no variety collecting. All that was known was a 55 double die and a couple, double dies. But since then, there's been, just an explosion of things being found, and so now it's, although not everything's been found, but I would say a good percentage of the interesting things have been found. Now it's just a job to go out there and find them. And you can find some really fantastic stuff.
Okay, and then for a tip from you for the new collectors, so they can hear it from an expert. Variety, error. What's the difference?
All right, well, a variety is a die variety. It's short for a die variety. And a die variety is something that happened to the die that strikes the coin. So it's going to be on every coin that is struck by that coin. And like a 69S double die Lincoln cent, everyone is going to be the same spread on the digits and all that. Whereas an error is what happens usually when the coin is struck. It's usually a striking error is what we refer to. Those aren't varieties, okay? Whether it's an off-center strike or a double strike or anything, those are not considered varieties, they're errors. So that's the difference.
So basically, it's the difference between something that happens many times or something that happens once.
You got to remember, there's planchet, die, and strike, PDS. Okay, things that happen to the planchet, laminations and partial planchets, those are errors. Okay, wrong striking errors. The die, things that happen to the die, those are going to be varieties because they're die varieties. Okay, and whether it's a double die or a clash die or anything that's happening to the die. So every coin struck with that die has that variety. And planchet die strike. And then the striking errors are, as I said already, off centers and things like that. Those are errors.
A good example of the planchet, having an issue with the planchet would be the Black Beauty nickels, where they got cooked too long.
Yeah, sure.
So they were all black.
Right.
But that made them really popular.
Yep.
So, all right, so we're going to get into some questions from the community.
Okay.
All right, so we got a couple from Bill 457. A lot of you guys know who he is.
Hi, Bill.
So the first one is, why are planchets thick on the flying eagles and early date Indian scents?
Well, because originally at that time, it was 1857, they still thought that the metal that's in the coin should closely resemble the value of the coin. Okay, so they went to from a large cent that had less than a cent of copper, maybe 70% of a cent in the copper, but it was getting expensive and they were losing money. So that's why they went to the copper nickel. But they still made it thick and substantial because they didn't want people to feel like they were being cheated. You know, what's this little thin piece of garbage? And then the Civil War came along, and people hoarded the copper nickel coins along with silver and gold. And even though it's not a precious metal, it wasn't worth a cent, but it was hard money from the government, and so it was hoarded. So in the cities, people came out with Civil War tokens that were thin copper tokens. And they circulated, and people accepted them. And the mint saw that and said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's make our own little token. So they made those illegal and made their own in bronze, and that stayed in, up until 1982. So, but the thick, what they called white cents at the time, were to make them feel substantial.
Basically, give people a peace of mind that it feels like it's worth
Oh,
something.
yeah, right.
As opposed to the 3-cent coin, the silver
you gotta-
chimes, where they went the
you know-
other direction, where it's like a little wafer.
Right. Well, large cents, we see the large cents were really, really disliked at the time. Okay, even though we love them now as collectors, they were big, clunky, and they accumulated grease and dirt. And they were really, if you ever saw an original hoard of large cents, I've seen many, the coins are just dirt crusted and you don't even want to touch them. It's like, ugh. So when they went away with that and came out with these nice, clean nickel coins, people really liked them. It was a big change, and the old copper cents, faded after 5 or 6 years. They had a recall.
Yeah.
And after that, you couldn't even spend them because they weren't legal tender anyway. So luckily, coin collectors came along for those large cents. So.
All right, then the second question was, how did you get started doing the snow varieties? If I was to get into something like that, how would I start?
Well, luckily, there was no book on Indian cents when I started. So you got to start with something that nobody's done before. But as far as how I started, I didn't really think I could write a book. So I started taking notes and making observations and things like that. Basically, trying to figure out the 1858 pattern cents and all the various combinations of those. And that's really how I started writing the book, was doing studying and looking at a lot of them, and luckily I was working for a dealer who was a national dealer. We went to a lot of shows, so I could see that kind of stuff. And and also we had a good collector base, and give and take. So I saw a lot of interesting things, and so the information just grew. So the thing is to just take a lot of notes if it interests you, and use that information and either for yourself or publish it. And if you publish it, then you can have it named after you. There's a lot of people that don't want to publish; they want to take the information and use it for their own self. But
something I often tell our viewers is I think collectors here in America sometimes take for granted how many resources we have for collecting.
oh yeah,
And there's a lot of countries out there that their coins trying to find any information on them other than maybe through like New Mist or NGC has the basis of they were made through these years. This is the metal they were made out of. Maybe some information about who designed it. But other than that, there's very, very little resource on a lot of countries' coins. And so I tell people if they really want to make their mark in the coin world, jump into that because those are resources we need.
right, yeah,
They need to actually start getting resources. Canada just really started getting more into doing the varieties and errors there. And so they've got a thing on Coins in Canada where anybody who discovers one can submit it through that website for free. And if it gets, if they look through what database they have right now and it's not there, then you get your name on it. And I know a few people from our community that have their name on coins for Canada now because of that. So that's a good way to get into it.
yeah. That's the power of the internet too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a tool you guys didn't have back in the day.
That's right.
Which now, but as you know very well, it's a mixed blessing because it's the internet.
Well,
So you have the
I
good
don't know.
and you have the horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. What are you pointing at? Horrible.
No,
No,
there's a people out there that will take a coin that you can tell looks like it's been through a shredder.
Yeah. Well,
And say this is a BU coin. In fact, I got kicked out of the first Facebook coin group I ever got into. Because somebody put one of the guys that was actually one of the primary moderators for that group put a picture up of a coin that said and was saying that this is a brilliant uncirculated coin,
and it wasn't.
and it looked like it had been drugged by a truck down the interstate for about 50 miles.
Yeah, right.
And I put on there, I was like, dude, that is not a BU coin. That thing is destroyed. It's a cull.
it's
And they
very-
kicked me out for it.
Very important that if you're online, you get good information because there's a lot of bad information
Yes.
out there, and it's I hear it all the time. I get people coming in saying, "Oh, I saw on the internet this is worth a lot," and I say, "No, sorry."
Right. And that's that's one of our goals for the YouTuber coin community is that we're trying to make sure we get the good information out there
Right.
and give people a place where they can go and know that what they're learning is right.
Yeah.
All right, next question is from Mr. Monkey Swag 96.
Hey, monkey.
What led you to specialize in U.S. small cents over other coin series?
Well, like I said, I was working for another coin dealer in the late 1980s here in Tucson, and the Indian cents sold really well. Every time we came out with a price list, they sold like crazy. So not only were there interesting varieties and things, but it was a popular series, always is, and I think always will be. And the fact that there was not a book, because I put my interest into writing the book, and that made me specialize in Indian cents because people would come to me with their coin collections, and people would come to my website to buy coins and see me at shows, and I'd see everything. It was kind of like the clearinghouse for anything Indian cents.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. All right. This one was from Silver Stanger. With the Peace Dollar series reaching 100 years old next year, do you think we will see a value hike on the series?
No.
No?
No. It's a nice series. I think the value in those is in the higher grade, later date ones. There might be some interest in them, but there's a lot of common ones. So I think the common
22s
ones,
definitely.
Yeah. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
All right, this one's from multiple people. Do you think the value on Silver Eagles will go up with the design change coming next year?
Probably, I think so. Yeah, but not because of the design change. It'll put a bookend to the series, I think, and people will concentrate on that and maybe move on. But it's already, I think, a series that is on the move and going up. Not just because of the bullion aspect of it, but because of the there's so many now, so many varieties and cool modifications and this and that that make it interesting to form a complete collection. And if you're doing a complete collection, there's some that are, going to really stop you, or be very difficult to get.
Yeah.
So it's a bona fide series with a lot of collectors, and there's a lot of people dealing in those. Certainly, the more recent ones, with all the dealers submitting coins for certification, there's a financial reward for them for promoting the series. Okay, so if you have a lot of people promoting the series, there's going to be a lot of people getting into it, and it's fun. And if there's a lot that are just bullion coins, but there's a lot that are extra special. So I think it's got a good potential.
Speaking from a personal standpoint on putting a bookend to a series, if anybody from the U.S. Mint is watching this video, please, for the love of God, can we do something with the Roosevelt dimes?
Yeah.
That series has had it. All right, next up. Okay, so this is an anonymous, so they didn't leave a thing here. It probably was somebody who saw the video on YouTube but didn't have their own channel, so it just popped up. All right, how long did it take to write/complete your books with multiple writers and getting all the photos and charts and everything? And could you talk a bit about the process and how all the people came together with multiple people involved? I guess somebody probably was
that's
endeavoring to be a writer.
Yeah, well, I was working at Allstate Coin.
Oh, one second. For anybody who's wondering what they're talking about, for example, Q. David Bowers wrote the foreword on this one, so that's kind of what they're talking about.
Yeah. And actually, I'll give Dave Bowers a plug. He's coming out with a book on flying eagles, and I did the foreword for that book. So it should be out anytime. I guess you have to go to Whitman to check that. It's a small book. It's not so much a price guide or collecting guide, but it's more about the time of 1856, 1857, 1858. And it's a really interesting book. So, but as far as, read me the question again.
So how long did it take to write/complete your book with multiple writers
Okay.
and getting all the photos and charts together, and
So-
talk about the process?
So the process was, I was in touch with a lot of collectors, and you have any new varieties, this and that, basically, and so it was a back and forth on this, and there was a lot of people very excited when they found out that I was writing a book on these, and so the process was a lot of communication with a lot of people, and so we formed a club, and that I guess these like the Flying Club is kind of like a YouTube channel today, or a YouTube group or a Facebook group. Okay, you can have your own little club and just talk about information, this and that, new stuff. So it's a little different, but similar. And as far as writing the book, I started small, and I worked 4 or 5 years and put out a book that was bare bones by the quality of this thing, and kind of any first edition I think is always needs improving.
Yeah.
So but at least I got it out there, and you get out there and then you improve it. And I've been working on it ever since. And just every day I add to it. And whether it's a picture here or information there, or a new variety that comes in, or just updating the history and the information, there's always something to add to it. And I also have an online book, which is about out. So it's about a 6-month lead time and I think they do a good job of getting it, shortening that lead time.
And one of the, in a lot of the YouTuber coin community, the opinion on the best as far as finding prices online is a website called Numis Media. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, that's by Krause.
Yeah, that's because it's got the real time. Like, I don't even know how much work they must sit there and put into that constantly all day long, but it's real time changing.
Right.
And even with like this, as silver and gold fluctuates, the prices are changing, and just as the market happens, it's instantly updated, and it's a great resource.
Right.
Again, for anybody who wanted to look at that, that's numismedia.com. All right. Oh, and on your books, for anybody who wants to know, what can be found in these that's not in that?
Okay, well, they're two different style books, okay? This one is for varieties. That's why it's called the Attribution Guide. And this is a collector guide, okay? So it has collecting information in there. They both have history in them, too. And when I wrote this book, I had to think about varieties, okay? When I wrote this book, I had to think about collecting the series, okay? And I had to make sure, since this was published by Whitman, I don't own the rights to what I put in there. So I had to rewrite the whole book to put it in here. So they're totally different books. And even the histories in each date are totally different. And not that the information is different, but so look at this one. This one goes into all the minute information about the different dyes, say for proofs here in 1900. All the little varieties. That's what its specialty is. Okay, that would be. It's inappropriate for just putting a collection of dates together to have all that information. The major varieties are in here, and we've added stuff over the time. It's a third edition. And they always want something more when you come out with a new edition. And so, like this last edition, my friend Sharmi Harker, the penny lady, she put in a section on exonumia, okay? And it's really cool, all this stuff. She's given some talks on that. And I put a biography of Longacre in here, which was quite good. I was lucky enough to see some of the family members of James Longacre, and was able to look at his diaries and his etching tools and everything. It's in the National Portrait Gallery, and anyway, this doesn't have any biography of Longacre, but this one does. Other information in this one, some of the major varieties, and let's see what else. Go into counterfeits in both books. The ones I list are the ones that would fool anybody, except people that read the book. So it's important to learn that kind of stuff. And they go into market history. And here's one section on toned proofs. If you go to PCGS Coin Facts, you see all these Indian cent proofs that are all vivid colors and everything. It's amazing. And a lot of people are like, are they fake? And where do these all come from? Right? and when I was in back in the late 70s, when I was just a up and coming coin collector, I didn't see this kind of stuff. That's one of the great things of having all the pictures and everything available. And I did research on these, and it turns out that there were hordes of these things, these iridescent tone proofs that came out in the 1930s. In fact, Abe Kossoff, one of the great dealers of all time, he started, his first coin deal was buying like 1,000 of these things, these iridescent tone proofs for like 50 cents or so. And found a market, found an eager market, people buying them for like $3-4, right? And he said, "Hey, this is a great business." That's in his book. But besides that, they got their toning because dealers were buying the leftover proof coins, the minor coins, the cents, nickels, and 3-cent pieces, at face value at the end of the year. And they kept these things in envelopes for 30, 40, 50 years. And most of these dealers passed away in the 30s, and that's where they came out. So the nickel coins didn't tone, but the copper coins toned a brown patina with this wild color. Anyway,
Okay, so the
real
last piece of that question, from the time when you first decided, I think I'm going to write a book, to the day the first one came off the print press, what was the time?
Oh, about 4 years.
4 years?
4 years.
So there you go. Give yourself around 4 years. Be patient.
I was single at the time too. I didn't have a dog.
All right, so you're gonna get put on the spot a little bit here. This is from multiple people. What are your favorite coins in your personal collection, and what's the coolest coin in your shop?
Well, right now the coolest coin in my shop is a 1865 Indian cents. And it's instead of being the typical bronze thin planchet, it's a thick planchet copper nickel, and it has a reeded edge, and it's a really cool coin. There's only 4 known, and
I think you showed me that one.
yeah, it's a really cool coin. So that's my newest, coolest.
So does that go for both your personal collection and?
Yeah. My personal collection is the information.
All right. So the next part, this is from Sovereign Archer, and
Hey, Sob.
he sent in some photos of some flying eagles that he's got, and he wanted us to show them to Rick because he wants to see if there are die clashes on these. So we're gonna have Rick take a look at these and see if he can tell from the photos if there's anything going on with these.
Well, the first one is a S9. That's a 57 with a clash from a half dollar, which is it's a fairly common coin, and the S9 is easy to spot because
S9, for those of you that don't know, that means snow 9.
Snow 9. It has a what looks like a raised area through America here, and what it is a raised area from the clash die from a half dollar, and it's reversed in this picture. And you see the arm comes down here. There's some imprint from the elbow and the pole and the gown and the leg down here. And so that's really cool. When they discovered that, Bill Feeva, I think, discovered that. I have it in the book, but that is a really cool variety. It's not worth too much of a premium in fine, but it is a cool variety. This, however, this is the coolest one. This has a clash die from a $20 gold piece. And that one, if you can find a mint state one, that's a ka-ching kind of moment, because the highest graded right now is an AU-58, and it's sold for $44,000 at auction. And so this is one to look out for. I can see everyone's leaving right now. They're going to go to eBay and look right now. Okay, so next one is, well, when you have a little clash right here, that's a clash from the reverse of the coin, okay? And that's no value, because that happens all the time. Clash dies are, it happens when they set up the dies. They have to have a certain tolerance between the two dies to strike the coin right. If it's too much, the dies will either hit or they'll impress the planchet way too hard and eventually crack, or crack right away. But when they're setting up the dies, if they set it up wrong, or they're trying to seek the higher, what they call a hammer die, they run the press through and it might clash. Okay, so that's why you see a lot of clashes on thin coins, like 3-cent silvers and 3-cent nickels too. And it's just when the dies are being set in the press. Okay, now it's not when a planchet misfeeds or doesn't go through, because when a proper setting on the dies, if there's no planchet, they're not going to hit. Okay, it's not like they're just going to keep going until they run out of.
So it decides
fill
to
it-
hit something.
yeah, no, there's properly spaced. So if there's no planchet, you don't hear a sound. Okay, but if they're set too close, okay, bam, you're going to hear a sound. Oh my God, the workman's going to come by and fix it, right? Because if it hits twice or 3 times, the die is going to break. So they don't want that. The Mint calls it a come together, but we call it a clash die. So in the instance with the S9, the S8, and the S7, the $20, what they had was 2 denomination dies in the same press. Okay, they had a $half die and a Flying Eagle die, and they were either they were changing one of them out. So they wanted to seat it in the press, and they cycled it through, and it said, "Oh, okay, that's too close," you know, or they did it and they tightened it, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from.
All right, so that was the first one.
Okay, and the second one is just a regular clash die, no premium for clash dies from the reverse of the same coin.
By the way, Sovereign Archer, if you're watching, these are in the exact order that you sent them in your email, so you know which one is which.
The other one looks like I really can't tell what he's looking at. It might be missing detail in the wing here, and that looks like a debris strike through. So when you get debris, be it maybe water on the planchet or grease or something,
Or a string.
or someone's finger, you know, gets stuck between the die and the coin, it's going to make an impression because it doesn't have any place to go. So that's what that is. That's not a premium thing unless it's maybe if the date is totally missing, that might be worth something. So.
All right,
Okay.
so there you go. The thing I don't get, and I'm sure it's just because I'm not a die worker or a mint worker, is you have a cent die and a $half die are very, very different size. How do you mess that up when you're installing those things? How can you not tell this doesn't go to this?
Well, there's 3 of them in 1857. There's one known in 1858 too, and there's a or a cross-denominational or multi-denominational clash die for 1864 2-cent pieces. There's a 1870 shield nickel with a clash from an Indian cent, and they happen occasionally. All right. Now, other things that they do are there's varieties like misplaced digits, okay, and these I think are a way of testing the hardness of the die, okay, because you see them from as far back as the 1850s, okay, up to say 1908, and that whole range, and I think what it was to see if the die was softened enough to impart the hub, or impart the design, or to see if it's hard enough to see if they can put it in the press. They would take a little digit punch and, you know, do a little tap on the denticles or in some out-of-the-way spot, and if it made a mark, oh, that means it's soft, okay, because they really can't tell without testing it. Now they use, you know, hardness tests and stuff like that, but this was like an ad hoc, oh, okay, this is ready for hubbing, or it doesn't make a mark, okay, this is ready for striking. So, and that's where you get all these misplaced digits and stuff. There's also another class that's like this. It's called misaligned die clashes. Okay, and this is coins that have like an arc of like the denticles from another die across the face of the coin. Okay, so this is a clash, and you can imagine the edge of a die hitting the other die and leaving a mark. Okay. Now, a hardened die, that wouldn't leave a mark. That only can happen on a softened die. So it didn't happen in the press. Okay. It's not like a die fell out and made, you know, it's not an error like that. It was intentional. What they would do, they'd take a hard die, again they'd take a soft die and a hard die and whap them together, you know, and if it made a mark, this one's soft. If it didn't make a mark, we can use that. And there's a couple Indian scent varieties with some really dramatic off-center clash marks, and those are worth collecting. There's one other one. There's the 1880 S1, which has a very, very dramatic clash arc. It goes from, on the reverse, from about 1 o'clock to the center of the coin, and only to the center of the coin. And now that one, we finally figured out that what they did was they had a blank die. Okay, now when a die is blank, it's shaped like a cone at the top. Okay, so when they impress it, the center gets more pressure at first. So it's a cone-shaped blank die, and they wanted to see if it was soft enough to use to impress the hub. So they took another die, a hardened die, and hit it, and it created only to the center of the coin because it's cone-shaped. And it made a clash mark, and they said, it'll come out in the wash when we hub it. Well, then they sink the hub, and they make the die, but they push down that indentation of the clash die, or the clash mark that they made, okay? And it gets pushed down. It didn't disappear. So we see it on those coins, and it's a really fabulous variety. And that's one to search for if you, on, searching eBay. It's a pretty rare variety. That was discovered by Bill Fiva back around 1980, and he said, "What's that?" And we finally figured it out about 6-7 years ago. It's in the books.
So a question I have is, for people that are studying new varieties and all that, are you guys able to just call them in anytime and be like, hey, we found this? Do you have die information about, what die pairs? Or do you guys have to try and piece that together yourselves?
They're a factory, and they might have that information, but they don't publish it. And for them to go retrieve it is probably very difficult. We do have, like from the 1800s, some die records, because they kept track of all the dies. And that's very interesting to some people.
Those are the diehards.
But I mean, when you're talking about, say, proof dies for matte-proof Lincolns, it's important.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So we're gonna have you sign this one.
Okay.
So everybody can see that he is signing it.
I'm signing it right now. In red.
So this book will be given to somebody at some point, probably for our 1,000 sub giveaway. So help us get to that 1,000 sub mark.